looking at 2020, Kamala Harris was on the Pod Save America show. That's where it's interesting that we're at the point where she has to apologize for this. And people can decide on their own whether they think it's a little too late. The policy she had as I think this was as AG, I think, the California AG, to punish the parents of kids who miss too much school. As it got more and more attention, stories of parents who were keeping their kid home from school because they had sickle cell anemia and they were too exhausted to go to school many days, were arrested and then caught up in the criminal justice system. Her poo-pooing of criminal justice reform during that era apparently has caught up with her, and she needs to apologize. Good for her for doing so. And of course, this is where you go and you do your apology tour on Pod Save America.
And my concern was, if we don't take seriously the need that we as a society should have to ensure that our children are receiving the benefit of an education, we will pay the price later, and those kids will pay the price, which is that they'll end up in the criminal justice system. And that's what I wanted to avoid. I wanted to avoid a situation where those children end up being criminalized, some for their entire lifetime, because we failed them in the earliest stages. And so part of what we wanted to do and what we did successfully, when I looked into this issue, John, I realized that there was no distinction in the education code between truancy, meaning 3 or 4 unexcused absences, and what we were seeing, which is kids missing as much as 80 days of a 180-day school year.
Yeah.
So we changed the law to say, no, we need to understand, like, if you think of it as in phases, as, yellow light, red light situation is the chronic truancy. And we actually got it in the education code. So now it says chronic truancy, 10% or more of the school year missed. Because we had to understand institutionally that this is a red light warning. And we're failing these kids if we're not paying attention to the fact that there are kids who are chronically truant and what that will mean for their lives, or just our failure as a system to let them achieve their capacity.
So, do you think that the 2011 law shouldn't have allowed some of these DAs to arrest
because
parents?
My regret is that I have now heard stories that where in some jurisdictions DAs have criminalized the parents.
Right.
And I regret that has happened, and that the thought that anything that I did could have led to that, because that certainly was not the intention. Never was the intention.
Yeah. I don't think so.
I know people can decide for themselves. That to me seems like a little bit of weak tea. So you implemented this law as the Attorney General and instituted this policy. You didn't realize that it would lead to the criminalization of these parents? I find that to be highly suspect.
We have the original tape here. Do you want to go over that
Yeah,
again?
let's go over it. Because, I understand the impetus. All that makes sense to me. Although I should be clear, 80 days out of 180 days is significantly larger than 10%.
18 days.
10% would be 18 days. 80 days out of 180 days would be closer to 40%. But nevertheless, we don't need to quibble about that. I think if you have a kid who's missing 10% of the days, you should maybe do something. But maybe what that would be we're going to send you a civil violation. You're going to get a ticket.
Summer school, maybe.
No, well, but maybe they don't. Maybe I'm just giving her the greatest benefit of the doubt as to what was in their purview. And certainly, if you're Attorney General, and you have the ability to criminalize that, you certainly have the ability to make it a civil violation. So you could say, like, we're going to send you a ticket for $20, and we're going to give you an apparatus to respond to that ticket. So the $20 is an incentive. We'll get the response. If the response is sickle cell anemia, the response is I don't have the ability to get my kid there. I'm working so much, I just don't have. I need help. Whatever it is, it seems to me there could have been a lot of different programs for this, but she, I think, chose to criminalize it. Here is when she's talking about that very policy back in the day.
I would not be standing here were it not for the education I received. And I know many of us will say the same thing. And I believe a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy. Well, this was a little controversial in San Francisco. And frankly, my staff went bananas. They were very concerned because we didn't know at the time whether I was going to have an opponent in my re-election race. But I said, look, I'm done. This is a serious issue, and I've got a little political capital, and I'm going to spend some of it. And this is what we did. We recognized that in that initiative, as a prosecutor and law enforcement, I have a huge stick. The school district has got a carrot. Let's work in tandem around our collective objective and goal, which is to get those kids in school. So, to that end, on my letterhead, now let me tell you something about my letterhead. When you're the DA of a major city in this country, usually the job comes with a badge. And there is often an artistic rendering of said badge on your stationery. So I sent a letter out on my letterhead to every parent in the school district, outlining the connection that was statistically proven between elementary school truancy, high school dropouts, who will become a victim of crime, and who will become a perpetrator of crime. We sent it out to everyone. A friend of mine actually called me and he said, Kamala, my wife got the letter. She freaked out. She brought all the kids into the living room, held up the letter, said, if you don't go to school, Kamala's going to put you and me in jail. Yes, we achieved intended effect.
So, friends of the AG, I would imagine, who are probably not in the same cohort as people who would have these problems, got the effect. I mean, I think quite clearly she said prosecute. I made the decision to prosecute the parents. So I don't know that Pod Save America apology was quite sufficient. Now, I imagine maybe we don't have the rest of the tape. Maybe we have the tape where Jon Favreau says, hey, wait a second. No, we've actually done our homework here with the millions of dollars that we have in our TV show. And we have this clip of you saying you were going to prosecute. How do you reconcile those two things? I mean, I don't know. Maybe she has an answer for that, but she didn't have that question, so she didn't have the opportunity to answer it. I mean, like I say, there could have been other options. And I will also add that I think educators would tell you that, well, it may be the case that that truancy is correlated with things like crime and dropping out, but that does not mean that they are causal. And the causation may be between the parents and the kids, or maybe the context in which the parents are living in, or so that is really super problematic. And I was hoping that her apology would have been a little bit more comprehensive, a little bit less dodgy,
a little less revisionist.
Yeah. I mean, because at this point, I've divided the field in half for the Democratic Party, and in terms of like how depressed I'm going to be as to who wins the primary or not. And she is still in the half where I'm going to be less depressed. She's not, I could divide it into quarters and she would not be in my top quartile. But she's not like, I'm not going to be Eric Swalwell depressed, with all due respect.
Biden depressed.
Or Biden depressed. But so I would like to see, a better explanation there. Like, you know what? Own it. Yeah. I made a mistake. I had the wrong attitude towards these things, and everybody learns. And when I was bragging about it and laughing about it at that function, I was drunk, or something to that effect. I don't know what you say, but that was a little disappointing.